Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Athearn Genesis GP50. This is a GP25 rebuild, so it's a GP50 Phase 2 in BNSF. We'll see what you get in the box, and with that said, we're just going to roll right into it. So, off comes the lid. Athearn news flyer, warranty card, manual, operator's manual, and a separate GP50 operator's guide, sound guide. I don't know if that's just a factory mistake or if I'm supposed to get two manuals, but it goes over everything including DCC and sound, but I have a feeling that we will not need to look at this for DCC and sound, and I'll tell you why later. Inside here is the actual loco. Just going to rip it out of here because I manhandle everything. And off it goes. Don't pick it up by the dynamic brake housing, fan housing like I do, because that does separate sometimes. We'll get the little handrail protectors out and take a closer look. Alright, so GP25 rebuild, i.e. GP50. Starting from the nose, got a snowplow with accessory hoses and a brake line hose with silver tipped ends, McHenry couplers, which are Athearn's own plastic couplers with a magnetic glad hand, LED ditch lights. They're starting to upgrade everything to LEDs, and then you've got MU stands inside those ditch lights on each end, BNSF on the front, sand filler hatch, and separately applied grab irons up front. And you do still have the old hand brake on the nose, not the wheel style. Whole lot of everything going on up here. Cab, air conditioner unit. You've got antennas on a antenna stand up here as well, and beacon lights on each end of the cab. Over here on the side, blower housing, a little toolbox, dynamic brake fan housing area, BNSF on the side. Got the stanchions, which seem to be holding up pretty good. Emergency shutoff on the fuel tanks. On the actual radiator housing area, 3 fans up top, a horn that's mounted on a stand. The back, more of the same, with ditch lights, spare knuckle couplers, I think it's right how you say it. Coupler cut levers, McHenry coupler again on the back. Give you a quick view of the roof here. Got the see-through fan on the dynamic brake fan, and a little bit of see-through detail on the radiator fan grills, just a lot harder to pick up depending on your angle. Dustbin hatch and exhaust just aft of the antenna stand areas. So that is the BNSF GP50 Phase 2, a GP25 rebuild, and we'll go into operation next. Alright, we're going to go ahead and fire this up so we can listen to some of the sounds. You may be able to notice from this angle, I didn't mention it on the 360, the right, or I forget what it's called, fireman side beacon is just pushed down about a millimeter or so, maybe less than a millimeter, so it's causing not that much to be shown, and it causes a little bit of flash in the cab. Now that I've got the locomotive fired up, I'm going to go ahead and push F1 so you can hear the bell. Also check the lighting real quick. Let me go with 0, 5 ditch lights. You can see those are definitely LEDs. And you see the beacons randomly blinking there. They'll blink in and out of sync over time. Here's bell. And horn. You know what? I cannot, for the life of me, remember what happens after that in these Soundtrack Tsunami 2 decoders. But luckily, we have with us somebody that can help us. Oh, it's George from Soundtracks.
Hi, James. How
Hey,
you
George.
doing?
Thanks for stopping by.
Hey, happy to do it. I'm excited to be here to help you out with this review.
Yep. Yeah, today we're going to hear some sounds past F2 and get a little more details on the Tsunami 2 decoder, which is in this Genesis Loco. So what happens after F2 and what's good about the decoder, George?
Well, we could talk for hours about what's good about the decoder, but some of the highlights that we're going to show you is that if you notice the strobes, they're actually a phase A and a phase B strobes, or strobe 1, strobe 2, so they're slightly out of sync, which gives that nice random look, and that's one of the cool upgrades that we did to the Tsunami 2. With that, we have the long and the short horn, so that way you can do proper whistle signals and you can get different tones. So F3 is going to play an actual short horn sound, and you'll get a little bit of a different tone than if you press the F2 and hold it down. So whistle signals can be more properly done. Now, some of the other sounds that we've got, F4 is the dynamic brake, which of course the locomotive actually has to be moving, because in the real world dynamic brakes won't work if the locomotives aren't moving. Now with the Tsunami 2, we actually can have a low dynamic brake, which is what you're hearing now, and when you're moving above speed step 8 or 10, you'll hear, if you press the F4 a second time, it'll go into dynamic brake high, which will actually implement that dynamic braking rate that you can set with your Tsunami 2 decoder. Now, some of the other things in there is F5 and F6 illuminate your lights, but an Athearn has moved an RPM plus and minus notching up to function 24 and function 25. Actually, I take that back. I'm sorry. So with the new decoder, F5 and F6 on these Athearn factory install actually controls the lights. But Athearn has taken function 26 and 27 to allow you to independently notch up the diesel engine RPM or down, independent of the speed. So for example here, if you're moving forward at say speed step 1, you'll hear the diesel engine notch up. But if you activate function 26, you'll hear the diesel engine RPM kick up, so that way you can manually control the speed of the diesel engine RPMs independent of the speed of the locomotive. So when you push function 27, you'll hear the RPMs drop. And so that's all independent of the speed. Now, one of the advantages of the Tsunami 2 is that you have a reactive dynamic digital exhaust, which will increase and decrease the diesel engine RPMs based on the load. Now, this is disabled out of the package on the Athearn factory install because there's a calibration process, and so you get a better, more realistic experience when you're setting it up. And we can go through that here in just a minute, and we'll set it up to show you how easy it is. So one of the other really cool features is this locomotive has the air conditioners very visible right there on the top. Well, Tsunami 2 has the air conditioner sound that will play randomly in the background, but you can adjust the probability. So modeling Phoenix, Arizona in the middle of summertime, you would imagine that air conditioning unit would kick on fairly regularly. And so you can set that probability CV to come on fairly regularly, and then you can adjust the volume level independently. So if you want to hear it a little louder, you can. And these are some of the great features that are in the Tsunami 2. So the volume control is CV 156, and 0 to 255 is the volume of the air conditioner. So you can set that up to whatever matches, and then the probability that you'll hear the air conditioner sound is set in CV 207. 0 to 255 equals 0 to 100% probability that you'll hear the air conditioner. So you can make those adjustments and match it up to what you're modeling. So we talked about the dynamic digital exhaust, and this allows the diesel engine RPMs to adjust based on the load on the motor. So to calibrate this, we're going to set 3 CVs. The first one is CV 2.503, 2.504, and 2.512. Now for more information on the 2. Part of the CVs, there's a video on the Soundtracks YouTube channel that you can watch that'll go into detail. But for this case, we're going to move the locomotive forward at speed step 1. Now we're going to set CV 2.503, which is CV 32 to 2, 503 to 255. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to calibrate the motor for the base minimum amount of power the motor needs. Now the next part of this is we're going to move the locomotive at about speed step 20, and I'm going to hold it till we get to speed step 20. And now we're going to program CV504 to 255, but before we press enter, I'm going to let the locomotive go. I'm going to let the locomotive go. Now we're going to press enter and set that CV. Now the CV is programmed, so now we can exit, bring the locomotive to a stop. Now we're going to set CV 2.512, and so we're going to program 512, because 32 is still 2. We're going to set that to about 25. And so it's a very low sensitivity. And once that's set, we can start moving our locomotive forward at speed step 1. And you notice it didn't really notch up, but as soon as we put some pressure on it, you start hearing it notch up because it's working harder against my hand. And then when we release, you hear it back down. So the cool thing is that now you can let the locomotive and the decoder automatically do the notching rather than locking your throttle up and playing the throttle knob to play your RPMs. So this gives you a little bit more fun now to enjoy running your train while gaining the experience of seeing it and hearing it, but now you can spend your time focusing on the task of running your trains. Once we have that, we can set the address. Now with thousands of decoders being sent for each of these product runs, Athearn doesn't specify the individual address. So on the main line here, we can go ahead and set the address, in this case, to 3110. So James is going to set the long address, which is stored in CV 17 and 18, but the good news is the DCC system does most of that calibration for you. So you'll activate the long address, 3110 program on the main, and now once we've set the address, now we can go ahead and run the locomotive now as address 3110. So you see we still have control of it. Now the actual buttons that you press to set the address are going to vary based on your DCC system. And so for that, we recommend you use the user's guide and see how to set the addresses based on your system. The buttons you were seeing there in the screen are the ones that are for the MRC Prodigy series system.
All right, so we'll just recap this. I think it's a really highly detailed locomotive. The only ding I could really even find is that beacon light pushed in a little bit. I have searched the internet, have not seen that as a problem, so it was probably luck of the draw with me. As I've mentioned in previous reviews, your mileage may vary. Chances of you getting a different model than I do, you having more problems, less problems, you know, it's all just luck of the draw. So you never know what happened in this particular case, but somewhere just a tiny push and that thing can be a millimeter into its casing. So that causes a little disco light inside, kind of a little strobe effect inside, but you can still see just the tip of the beacon light. Talking to George, he said it's a pretty easy fix. You just take off the shell, take off the cab, push it up through, you're good to go. The window's opened, we could even find a way to do it, but the windows don't open. Overall, good locomotive other than that. Pull test was good at about 2.6 ounces, and it's gonna pull about 35 or 40 cars, no problem. Sounds real good, and you got that Genesis drive, which is smooth. With that said, I'm going to leave you with a run-by of this guy. It's kind of a remote operating locomotive, so there's like remote service on here and a lot of placarding that you can read. But we'll leave that at the run-by at the crossing, and we'll see you next time right here on my channel. Take care.